Lord of the Mysteries, the series we all know and love, and there's one specific thing about this series I love a lot, and that is the abundance of iconic moments. There's so many of them, and they truly make up this series and make it extremely memorable for me personally. I know you guys feel the same way though, so in today's video we will be going over some of the most iconic moments. These don't have to be crazy fights or insane moments, plot twists like with Adam and Amon. This can also simply be comedic moments, like when Klein put on a monocle to fool Medici, or Leonard, which I'll come to in just a second. And speaking of Leonard, let's start off straight away with him, because I think he has had two iconic moments that I just think about whenever I see his name. Now, first of all, let's talk about the ending of Volume 1 when he had to, pretend that he was cool while the pregnant goes with the true creator trying to spawn, trying to descend onto Earth was right next to him, and he had to pretend like everything was fine and simply sip on his tea while Klein prepared the fight with Don Smith, etc. On top of that, of course, the true ending of Volume 1 with Captain Don Smith dying, him losing Klein ready, was pretty iconic in my mind as well. That is very tragic, but we take a 180 turn because the second iconic moment is the fact that he had to dig up the grave of his own best friend just to find out his best friend isn't dead. Now that was so funny to me and cemented Leonard as one of my favorite characters. Honestly, I absolutely love the guy. And yeah, that's what this video is going to be about. We're just going to talk about some of the most iconic moments. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now, where else can I begin? When you think of iconic moments, who do we think of? We think of Adam and Amon, the weird brother-father, whatever relationship you want to call them. They both have too many iconic moments to even be numbered. So let's start off with Adam. Now, honestly, my favorite and most iconic moment of Adam, in my opinion, has to go to We Meet Again, Mysteries, because this one sentence implies so many various things about Adam. I mean, think about it for just a second. This isn't only, Adam talking to Klein, telling him that he is the ancient sun god. At the same time, this is the primordial God Almighty talking to Celestial Worthy, right? So of course, the literal definition of this is the fact that Klein divined the ancient sun god earlier, and now that he's with Adam, Adam confirmed that he is the ancient sun god, and that was a huge reveal. But at the same time, it's also the primordial God Almighty speaking to Celestial Worthy at that point. At that point, both of them are starting to awaken inside of, the bodies respectively. So I think that is just such a tiny detail that made it so memorable for me personally. But of course, it's Adam. This guy has had too many iconic moments, right? For example, when he orchestrated an entire world war as a sequence 1 and was perhaps the cause of George III's apotheosis ritual to fail and the cause of the god of combat to fall. Both of these happening might have been due to Adam. It's not 100% confirmed, but he did that as a sequence 1. Keep that in mind. That is absolutely insane. Now next up, let's talk about Amon. Now Amon is even worse than Adam. There's even more iconic moments when we think of Amon. For example, when he rung the Church of the Fool's bell at the end of the series, towards the end, that was absolutely insane. That was honestly one of the funniest moments to me, like just a perfectly in line for Amon. But then of course we have to talk about a more serious event, that being of course his apotheosis ritual. I mean, this guy took over Mr. Door, right? So while we're here, let's talk about Mr. Door. Mr. Door entered, right? This guy wasn't seen throughout the entire series. He came for one chapter and he was on that smoke. This guy was feared in the 4th epoch as a sequence 1. He was feared by true gods as a sequence 1. Think about that for just a second. And the only reason this guy didn't advance is because of his corruption. So he came back for one chapter, surprised everyone with his power, right? Clearly above everyone. Even true gods couldn't restrain him in that moment. Of course, that's partly due to the mother goddess of depravity's corruption inside of him, making him temporarily stronger. But at the same time, that is still a ridiculous feat. And he willingly gave up his life to Amon in that moment, fulfilling Amon's almost impossible apotheosis ritual. I mean, how hard is it, right, to take over another person's apotheosis rituals? How many of those happen in countless amount of years? There's never going to be too many that ever happen. So it was such an iconic moment for me, right? Mr. Door's sacrifice, seeing him for only one chapter, while that is a shame, it truly showed off his pride, right? Mr. Door, right, the king arrived, and seeing Amon take him over was absolutely beautiful, the whole sequence. And yeah, there isn't any lack of iconic moments for Amon as we continue with the Forsaken Land of Gods and Chernobyl. Chernobyl is an absolute insane moment with one of the biggest reveals. If you weren't spoiled for Chernobyl, unfortunately many people are when we talk about Lord of the Mysteries, but if you weren't spoiled, this might have been the biggest twist for you in general, and well, it is extremely iconic. I mean, everyone thinks of Lord of the Mysteries as a transmigration novel, but unfortunately many people spoil that and say no, it isn't a transmigration novel, and then they get spoiled, etc. But if you weren't, it is absolutely insane. So yeah, I think I spoke enough about these two, and let's move on to some different characters. Now next up, I just want to talk about two different Terror Club members. Now this time I will be talking about Alger and Derrick. Now these two have exact opposite iconic moments in my opinion, right? Memorable moments that I think about them. When it comes to Alger, it is not serious whatsoever. I cannot take Alger serious, I'm sorry guys, but I can't stop thinking about how every single Terror Club meeting, this guy was sweating bricks. I mean, this guy was terrified. Every single Terror Club meeting, he was overthinking. Of course, anyone in his position would, right? As a logical person, as a pirate of the sea, an experienced pirate, of course he would think, well, Mr. Fool's an incredible deity with angels on his side. He wouldn't doubt that. He wouldn't try to be too nice. He would just do his job. And that's exactly what Alger did. But it is just so funny to see him be so worried, especially as he almost betrayed the Terror Club at some point. And when he saw the consequences of what happened to Catellia, which is, well, also one of the most iconic moments for her, in my opinion, the most memorable moment when Mr. Fool punished her, Alger got terrified. I mean, this dude was so terrified. Every single Terror Club meeting, it just stuck in my head. That's what I think about when I think of him. Also, that one fan art with him and Derrick, but let's talk about Derrick now. Now, Derrick, for me, it has to go to the Saucer fight. I mean, there's some other moments that I can think of. Him just being this naive boy during the Terror Club meetings, him almost getting scammed by other Terror Club members was always funny to see. But of course, the Saucer fight just stands out to me. I mean, him having to align himself with Elder Lovia and finding out that Elder Lovia never betrayed the City of Silver. Of course, him combining with Colin Iliad, their whole dynamic, sort of a father-son relationship between them, in my opinion. Teaming up with Garamond Sparrow as well, the world, someone who we respect, who always brings back Sequence 5 characteristics, but we'll talk about that when we get there. There's just so much to love about the Saucer fight. I've talked about it so many times. Just the fight itself had so many implications. Even Amon was involved. Other characters were involved. This ties back way back to the Rose Redemption, Ancient Sun God's Fall, the old Forsaken Land of Gods itself. It was just such a beautiful sequence, and that is what I think of when I think of Derrick. And yeah, let's move on to the next characters. Now let's talk about another extremely iconic character that a lot of people tend to forget about as the series draws on because he gets less and less relevant, but one of his favorite moments occurs at the end of the series. That character is of course Azik Eggers, one of my favorite characters, and I have a whole video dedicated on him. That's how much I love Azik. This guy is such a goated character in my opinion. Start of the series, he helps out Klein so much and is almost like a father figure to him once again. I mean, we just talked about that with Derrick and Colin. Klein, well, looked up to Azik so much because of his strength and because of how kind he was despite of his strength, right? Especially when he found out the whole truth regarding Azik, which is again one of the most iconic and memorable things for him, and he still refused Salinger's request. He still refused the Evernight's request. He chose to keep the loop, kept dying over and over again, despite, well, being his torture. I mean, it's terrible for him. It's a terrible fate, but he accepted nevertheless because he didn't want to lose his humanity and go back to being that cold-blooded, ruthless killer, death console, of course, for the Balam Empire. Of course, the other option wasn't great either, that being Salinger waking up inside of him. Now, other than that, so many iconic moments. Start of the series, he helped Klein out, defeat Kilangos, then of course stop the meteor in Volume 2, and then lastly, in sort of way in the future of Lord of the Mysteries, in the last volume, when he finally wakes up after his slumber, he wakes up and just reads all of the letters Klein sent him. That was one of the most heartfelt moments in all of Lord of the Mysteries. Him seeing all the sort of journeys Klein went through while he was asleep. I mean, it was an entire 4 volumes. This guy fell asleep back in Volume 4. Klein became, what, a Sequence 4 at the end of Volume 4, and climbed all the way up to a true god, way surpassing what Azik ever was, even in his prime. So just to see Azik feel Klein's sort of heart, right? Feel the burden he accepted towards the end, especially as Klein never forgot about Azik. It was so heartwarming to see. That one letter Azik wrote to him was just absolutely heartbreaking and such an iconic moment. But while we're on the topic of Azik and Death God Salinger, let's talk about the Evernight Goddess, who was mixed up in this whole ordeal. The Evernight Goddess is also an extremely important character in the series that's been helping Klein since day one, but unlike Azik, she wasn't always showing it, but she was always there, right? Of course, we all know Klein was a blessed one of her since day one. That's why he was able to stay lucid during dreams. He just thought that was a trait he gained through transmigration. No, the Evernight Goddess always had your back. She intervened from the very start, helping Klein out, getting him through the whole process, of course, and in the end she just helped him out so many times, right? One moment is, of course, for example, her sending him to Foggy Town, knowing that he can get out of there and obtain the Sequence 4 recipe, etc. There's just so many different things she did, but one of the biggest things that stuck out to me was, of course, her being able to plan out things over thousands of futures, and her being such a smart character that she was able to plan with Lilith, her being able to take over the Earth Mother's identity, etc., and killing the God of Combat in the 5th epoch. She planned this out from the 2nd epoch. from the second to the fifth is thousands of years, and she was able to plan out the God of Combat's death all the way from back then, and it paid off, and it was one of the most iconic moments for her and Lilith respectively. But for me, it felt like more of the Evernight goddess being involved, because she was the one that planned it all out, of course with the help of ASG, etc. Yes, that's what she made the plan back when ASG was alive. So that just shows you how smart she is. And yeah, let's talk about the next characters. Now, next up, I want to talk about a character that is extremely hated within the community, and fair enough, I hate this character as well. That is Ince, but there's no denying this guy was very well involved throughout the start of the series up until his demise at the end of Volume 4. I mean, the Quill of Azulhood was so unpredictable. I'm more ranking its memorable moments of that rather than the actual Ince himself, because the Quill of Azulhood absolutely carried him. I mean, think about the ending of Volume 1. He orchestrated that entire thing, and that is pretty memorable to me. Of course, I hate him, but I can't deny that. Volume 2, he summoned the meteors, and of course the end of Volume 4, we all love the ending because he died, right? It's not favorable for him, but we can't deny that it is an iconic moment. But of course, we'll talk about the heroes just ahead when we talk about Klein. But yeah, he just was an iconic character throughout the start of the series, and the Quill of Azulhood, well, carried him pretty hard, but then later on went to Adam, etc. But speaking of Quill of Azulhood and spectators in general, while we're on this topic, let's talk about Audrey Hall, the best girl in this series, what many people consider to be their favorite sort of girl, favorite tarot club member, etc. And fair enough, she is like just such an amazing character. Again, I made a whole video on her for a reason. She's beautiful, both character and sort of actually physically, and she carries, well, a big part of the series and helps out with Gehrman Sparrow so much. That is my most memorable sort of iconic moment for her, the fact that she was the therapist of God himself, right? That is insane. That is an insane title. And of course, the world needs justice. There's so many just different things connecting her to Klein, and I absolutely love it. Of course, she is also connected into the Hall of Truth, which I'll talk about now. The Hall of Truth is my favorite mini arc. I mean, other than Foggy Town, which is sort of the most iconic combat focused arc, which is all about Antigonus, Zaratul, Mr. A, right? All these crazy characters. Well, the Hall of Truth is simply the opposite of that. It is the most comedic, sort of best sort of feeling mini arc, with Leonard, Audrey, and Klein all being sort of characters, especially with Klein being Gehrman Sparrow, Leonard being Leonard, Audrey just being Audrey, and them sort of not being able to contain their thoughts. Audrey finding out that Gehrman Sparrow isn't this cold hunter and that he's actually just a normal dude underneath. Of course, Klein already being pissed that his thoughts are being let out, and Leonard finding the whole situation extremely funny. It was just such a joy to see them sort of have a human moment before things got serious, because that is honestly like the last time I can think of where everyone could just sit back for a second and just laugh things out. There's no time for that. After that, it's all business. The only other time I could think of is Marilyn Hermes, but that's a more depressing side of freedom, right? If we think about it from a sort of two different standpoints, that's a very depressing side of freedom, while the Hall of Truth is a more friendship, companion side of freedom, right? He was with his friends. When he was Marilyn Hermes, he was completely alone, right? With marionettes surrounding him rather than actual people. So yeah, that is the most iconic mini arc in my opinion, and I absolutely loved it. Now let's talk about the next character. Lastly, I want to talk about two of the main characters in this book. Now, yes, you're probably wondering, two of the main characters, what is this guy yapping about? There's only Klein already, and we're not really including Lumion in this list, are we? No, we're not. I'm talking about the ancient sun god. Let's start off with him. I mean, when I think of iconic characters, I can't help but think of him, right? I could have included this part when I talked about Adam, but I wanted to create a whole separate section for him because he is him, guys. I mean, this guy is insane, right? Being able to make humanity the golden age of humanity, right? After all these creatures, all these people were ruling the earth, right, that weren't humans, being able to come as a sole human, accommodate the chaos sea, right, become sequence zero of all these different pathways, right, have too many characteristics inside of you, and just being able to slay all other ancient gods, right? They are fully at your mercy, right? You are so much stronger than them, and you have so much power that you have to separate yourself and create Adam, create Sastri, right, create Amon, etc., right? It's just insane to me, right? All of these various things. Of course, Rose Redemption was involved in all of this. There were so many iconic moments, but the most iconic moment was, funny enough, not all of his achievements, but rather his death. Yes, his death was the most iconic moment and one of the most pivotal moments in the entirety of Lord of the Mysteries. This was one of the key turning points in the history of Lord of the Mysteries, and I recommend checking out my full history sort of video back, well, a couple weeks ago for a full explanation, but it was one of the most important moments to ever happen, and the ancient Sangha was just such a cool person to hear about, right, from all these stories in the 5th epoch. I just really want to see some more side stories on him, some more clarification on him, because it would just be so cool to see Grisha some more. But yeah, what can we do about it? This guy was him. I just wanted to mention him for a few moments. Just the amount of aura radiating from this guy is insane. But the most aura in the entire series belongs to Klein Moretti. There is no doubt about that. The main character of the book, of course, literally not like Ancient Sun God or Circle of Inevitability Lumia. No, main character of Lord of the Mysteries, the series we all love, Klein Moretti. There is so many iconic moments. I've said this a couple of times, but I'm not even joking when I say this for Klein Moretti. Think about all the iconic moments I've mentioned so far. Now, Klein Moretti was basically involved in 90% of them. All of Amon's ones were connected to Klein Moretti, right? Amon's apotheosis ritual led up to Klein's apotheosis ritual. Amon's involvement with the Church of the Fool, well, Church of the Fool is Klein. Amon Chernobyl was with Klein. All of Amon's moments were with him. Adam with the Corpse Cathedral, he was talking to Klein, right? The whole Tarot Club, every single Tarot Club's iconic moment was connected to Klein. Hall of Truth, Klein, all of these. There's just so many moments when it comes to Klein, right? Even he affects all other characters, right? And that is pretty much my most iconic moment of him, especially as we draw towards the end of the series. My absolute favorite moment was his apotheosis ritual. Not only was it an amazing fight, right, the best fight in the entire series if you count it as one huge fight, with all the gods sort of going at it, picking a side. Are we picking Amon? Are we picking Klein? And them fighting, right, and properly descending and properly fighting against each other, creating barriers to protect Klein. The others are trying to invade the barriers, help Amon, and of course his actual fight with Amon, right? The Fool's Gambit was absolutely insane. Seeing Klein become a sequence 0 and automatically lower the IQ of Amon was insane. That one line where it says Amon's IQ was forcibly lowered, right? His thoughts slowly turned slow. Amon calling Klein, you're crazy, right? Imagine the god of deceit calling you crazy. That is insane, right? Just so many various things happen at that moment. Of course, the aftermath of the fight was just as iconic, right? Him sort of seeing all of his friends, family dancing in the Sapphire Castle, him closing everything off, going to sleep, accepting the burden of Celestial Worthy was insane to me. It was just, everything was so sort of heartbreaking at that moment, but just as iconic as the fight that came before it. Early series, Klein had some other crazy moments, but I already mentioned it with other characters such as Migos, the whole Volume 1 ending, Volume 4 ending with Insangwell. There's just so much, right? Volume 5 ending with George's apotheosis ritual. Volume 6 with the Sasir fight. Volume 7, Meridian Hermes was just as iconic and arguably the fan favorite personality of Klein Moretti. There's just so many things when it comes to Klein Moretti, but Volume 8 is what stuck out to me as his most iconic moments for me. But please let me know down in the comments below what you think his most iconic moments are and just some of your favorite moments throughout the series. It's a very casual video. I just wanted to talk about a few normal things because in the next few weeks I will be talking about very lore heavy subjects and very long videos, so I just wanted to keep things a bit fresh for now. I just talk about my own things, and yeah, look out for the stream this Saturday and see you all there. I hope I have the chance to talk to you all, and I would love it if you guys tune in. So I will be streaming it around sort of 4 p.m. GMT time, but I'll let you guys know in the next community post. And yeah, that's it for this video. Let me know what you guys thought down in the comments, and I wish you all a wonderful day. Look out for the lore heavy videos. They're going to be absolutely fire. See you guys. Love you.